G'day guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildcard. Thank you for being here and watching my content and giving me the pleasure and privilege to talk about my favorite sport, rugby. Now, today, there will be no yelling, there will be no cursing. Today is Tuesday, and on Tuesdays, it's time to read the news. So first up, before we get into the news, I just want to plug myself for the first time in this channel. So on every week before I do my reviews where I yell about the game I just watched, I actually have a calm and collected, believe it or not, preview of all the games on my channel. So I go through the list, I put out all the stats of each players, and give you guys a rundown of what I think is going to happen, predictions, some news leading into the game, the weather, basically everything you need to know going into the match. And I make one of these custom sheets that tells you about all the changes and stats of the players that you can download in the video link. So that happens every week before the game. So this week the team sheets will be released on Friday, so as soon as they're announced, I will be producing these videos as quickly as possible. So if you want to have a quick look at what's going to happen, some of the predictions, check into my channel on Friday for the previews. Other than that, let's talk about the news from last week. So first up, Rugby World Rankings, something that we all care about so much. It's finally came out this week. Surprisingly, not too many changes around the board. Ireland maintains #1 spot. France #2, New Zealand #3. South Africa, despite losing, retains the #4 spot. England, despite winning, stays at #5 spot. As you can see, there's quite a big gap between England and the Springboks here. Argentina retains #6 spot, despite losing to Wales. Wales, however, did move up quite a little bit, going from 9th up to 7th after beating Argentina in a really, I thought, clinical performance. Australia loses quite a bit of ground to Italy, dropping to 8th from 7th, and Scotland jumping from 8th to 9th after losing to the Springboks, and Japan retains the 10th spot despite losing to England over the weekend. So, interestingly, Italy only gained 1 spot after beating Australia, so they're just out of the range of the top 10. They're currently sitting on 11th. So with that being said, obviously you saw the title, and this is something that gets me excited every Tuesday to make these videos, as the Springboks always announces the team early every week. So they have already announced the team that's going to be playing Italy this weekend for the Springboks. So they have made a few changes this game. Let's just go through this lineup and see what has Rassie presented for us for the Italian game. Is this going to be an upset? So yeah, first up, Springboks, Ox Inche, Bungi Bunabi, and Franz Mahebe retains the front row position. This is the same front row they had last week against the French. So they were pretty dominant in the first half. To my surprise, I thought the starting forward pack actually looked stronger than the reserves, despite the bomb squad sort of strategy that the Springboks liked. But even though last week they did play with only 5 forwards, but still I was surprised at how good this front rower was against the pretty dominant French forward pack from the Six Nations. In the locking positions, 2 big changes for the Springboks. And we know that the Springbok locks, it's like the bread and butter of their forward pack, the backbone of the forward pack. And the biggest surprise is Ebenezer. He's been moved to the bench, probably giving him a little bit of a break. He basically has no time off. Every game he's on the field, and just coming off the bench, he's still, he's not technically taking a game off. He's still, in that crucial bomb squad finisher sort of position to help out the Springboks in the second half. Samar Morat gets an option at #4. Marvin Orie, after coming off the field, I thought he immediately gave away a penalty. I was not very pleased with that when he came off the field, especially if you're fresh. You don't expect somebody to give away a penalty right away. So Marvin Orie does get an opportunity to redeem himself in the starting #5 jersey. #6, the captain, Sia Khaleesi, gets that open side flanker position with the 6th jersey, and Franco Moster moves from I think Moster was #5 last week. He played lock, either 5 or 4, next to Eben Esabeth. I think he was playing #5. And he gets moved to that blindside flanker position in the #7 jersey, something that the Springboks typically do anyway. When Peter Sepp du Toit someone just knocked my door. When Peter Sepp du Toit was injured last year, Franco Moster has play that 7 jersey quite often in his place. Jasper Visa gets a number 8 jersey once again for the Springboks. Faf de Klerk gets number 9 jersey at the halfback position. Damian Willemse comes in number 10. He turns out to be a world-class kicker last week. He did get 100% provided that he had one kick. It was a difficult kick a bit from the sideline, a bit of an angle, 40 meters out also. Was quite pleased to see that he landed that one. Curly Alensa retains number 11 jersey over, once again, Makazulu Mapimpi, who's completely dropped from the team this week, which is quite interesting altogether. To see that Rassie Erasmus favouring Alensa altogether over Makazulu Mapimpi is it's a really interesting selection here, because Marco Zolo is like, 32 years old as well. So obviously Rassie wants to move into the future and bring up the next generation. So Cody Adensa is currently the favorite number 11 for the Springboks. Andre Esterhuizen gets number 12 jersey coming in for Damien Dialendi, who's been pushed out to the number 13 jersey. And number 14 is Cheslin Kobe, retains the 14th spot. And Villy LaRue, interestingly, playing a bit of a role as a second playmaker, retains the numbers 15 jersey. He did a lot of like strategic kicking on the field, like little short kick behind, crossfield kick sort of thing, something that you would typically expect from a 10. He was doing a bit of that last week. So interestingly enough, he gets number 15 jersey once again for the Springboks. So in terms of, so obviously with Andre Esterhuizen moving to number 12, Jesse Creel, who was started number 13 last week, has missed out on the 13 jersey for the Springboks. On the bench, Malcolm Marks, Steven Kitzy, and Vincent Koch gets the number, gets the reserve front row positions. And I just noticed this: Vincent Koch actually has been noticed here that he's signed with Stade de France. So he was obviously dropped from the Wasps, who went bankrupt, the English team. So there was a period where he was unemployed technically, but yeah, he's apparently signed with Stade de France, which is a good pickup for the French side. Evan Nesbitt at number 19, Huaka Smith gets number 20 jersey, and Evan Roos gets to be a reserve number 8 for the Springboks. So Springboks is starting that number 6-2 split on the bench as well, with 6 forwards and 2 back. And Evan Roos is someone that a lot of the Springboks fans love to see. He has been tremendous in the URC for the Springboks, not for the South African teams, for the Stormers last year. So very interesting to see him again. I really want to see him perform. Kobus Reinach retains the number 22 jersey, and Manny Lebok gets that number 23 as a reserve number 10 essentially. Or I guess he's a utility reserve, net reserve number 10, and then if anybody else gets injured, Damian Willemse will cover it in their place. So that's the Springbok lineup for Italy. So Springboks obviously has taken this game extremely seriously. They have not changed 12 players like the Wallabies did last week, despite, the Springboks being the world champions, a much better team than the Wallabies. Only a slight, I would say there's a very minor tweaks to the Springbok team to go up against, showing a lot of respect against Italy. Going up against Italy. This is not like the second test against Welsh where they put on the B team. This is a serious, legitimate team that could, that's gonna be a very big challenge for Italy coming up on the weekend. So obviously some results on the weekend. France, like we mentioned, top of the world champions, 30 points to 26. A lot of controversy come out of this game. This was an absolute spectacular game of rugby. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. This is like World Cup final level. It was so spectacularly played by both teams, and lots of back and forth, and lots of heart, lots of grit, lots of just sheer mental determination to beat the other team. Essentially, this was rugby at its finest on the weekend. So obviously the controversies came out. Probably the biggest controversy is that Rassie Erasmus is at it again, sending out his tweets about the referees. He did this last week against Ireland as well, but he only made like one video where he kind of, not technically criticizing the referee, but subtly poking jab the referee with a video that shows some mistakes of the referee without directly referring to it. But this week is more blatant. He basically tweeted out a series of tweets. So this is just absolute awesome for content makers like me to go through and have a bit of fun. So obviously Rassie made a rule. If I wants to use his Twitter post as clickbait, which I will, I would not speak ill of him. So yeah, this is basically his agreement. You know, don't use for clickbait if you don't agree with his tweets. So I would not be speaking ill of Rassie. I do think that he's treading a very fine line with World Rugby. So yeah, let's have a look at what the genius himself has come out. So he's just shot a bunch of videos. So yeah, obviously he shot one here where there's a high shot. I just freeze the frame for you. A high shot here. With all his tweets, he never directly addressed this being like, he's been like kind of like sarcastic, saying that, oh, we need to learn to get better at this. And then it literally shows like the French doing the wrong thing, and the Springboks not being penalized when the Springboks did. So very smart of him to do that, but very entertaining for me, for a lot of rugby fans. Obviously, he has split the rugby community down the middle. A lot of people, especially people outside of South Africa, don't like this. I do think that, Rassie Erasmus, he is such a good politician. I think he should run for president in South Africa. He might actually win, despite the what do you call it, the political climate in South Africa at the moment. I feel like he's so good at the Twitter game, he could potentially win an election. And yeah, we shall see if he's going to move into a political career after his rugby coaching career. So he showed a lot of things where the French weren't penalized. This is a big one where I thought it was contentious. Initially, I thought this was a definite yellow card, but after reviewing this video that Rassie posted, it did look like the scrum, the ball carrier was detached from the scrum. Dion Fury makes the tackle, which Wayne Barnes said that was cynical and issued a yellow card. It does look like that the scrum has been detached at this point, and this shouldn't have been a yellow card. You could potentially argue that it was an offside position, but it didn't really look like this should have been a yellow card to me. In fact, Eben probably the one should have gotten a yellow card from entering the ruck from the side. But yeah, with that being said, this was interesting. Rassie pointed out an incident where the French player Fiji wasn't penalized for being blatantly offside, and then pointed out another incident here where the number 9 was under pressure. Again, Faf was under pressure by the clearly offside number 7. And then this is a contentious one. The end, there was no replay during the game as well. I was really baffled. But this pass from Willie Leroux, you can see the ball here. If I just make this, I don't think it's gonna, you can see the screen if I make it big anyway. But this is definitely not a forward pass to me. But the referee said this was a forward, and yeah, this is definitely not a forward pass at all. And this was basically the end of the game where the Springboks turned over the ball and the French won, essentially. And also, this is a big one here where I don't really know what happened here, actually. I don't know what this means. But yeah, there are some interesting tweets from Rassie. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. I do think that he's trading a very fine line with World Rugby at the moment. And yeah, I really don't want to see him get banned again, because that's going to be really big issue for the Springboks going into the Rugby World Cup. Obviously, Kitty, our favorite Lucia prop in South Africa, has signed a deal with Ulster in Ireland following his after the Rugby World Cup 2023. So there was some talks already a while ago that he was going to leave South Africa to pursue some extra money overseas. So yeah, it's been confirmed he's going to Ulster. A little bit more here. So this is again in the weekend. So this is one I wanted to just show you. I muted the sound. So this is the try at the end where France won. There was a lot of talks about this being a double movement, and it was really like a bit of conspiracy going on. Even me, I was really confused why there was no replay, especially when Barnsley asked for a review. They just stood there and didn't show any replay, and Barnsley's mic was cut as well. That was really, really, really weird. But after that, I did watch this, and it does look like so here, right? The player, his hands are touched the ground here. His knees still off the ground. So once your hands or knees touch the ground, you have one movement to place the ball. So he's touched the ground here already, and he's kind of extended himself over the line. I think that's actually okay. Let me know your thoughts. That looks okay to me. He did not, because obviously, yeah, he did not move twice. You do have opportunity to make one movement. There's a lot of disagreement with that, and I do agree with the allegedly referee decision. But yeah, I thought it was really weird. The main thing was the fact that it didn't show any replay during this live was really, just really led to a lot of speculations of potential, like, cover up by the French TV broadcasters. So obviously another disappointment for a lot of the Springbok fans. The South African A team lost to Munster in a midweek match. I did not expect this game to be that important to Springboks. Obviously, they're not going to play anybody that could even remotely be a substitute for the Springbok team. So if anybody gets injured during training, they're going to have to bring someone up. So there's no way they're going to play anybody that's even in the B team, because the A team has been announced to 23, and then the B team has to be on standby in case anybody in the A team gets injured, like in the warm-up, which happens quite frequently nowadays, just before the kickoff. So they need the B team to be standby. So this is essentially like the C team that went in to play Ulster. But still, really, a lot of the Irish fans are really happy. Not Ulster, Munster, that the South African A was beaten. Anyway, so the next test match was the Scottish game versus the All Blacks, the second biggest game of the weekend. This was much closer game than everybody has anticipated. Obviously, except for me, I knew this was going to be a close game. This was a game where this was a game where Finn Russell has been called back for Scottish side for the, since his kind of punishment essentially was with Gregor Townsend for, off-field antics essentially. And he is basically back, and he really showed. He was up against Beauden Barrett, and I thought he was the better 10 on the field on the day. Beauden will look really rusty. He hasn't played 10 for quite a while. Looked really rusty. His kicking game was way off. Overcooked a lot of kicks. Decision making was questionable, and Finn Russell really showed Beauden he was a much better 10 on the day. So that being said, Scottish team also had a really good opportunity to upset the All Blacks for the first time ever, and they kind of let the All Blacks off the hook. The reserves came on and just did not finish the game strong as you wanted from the reserves, whereas the All Blacks reserves came on, just absolutely took the team to another level. So there's a lot of discussions about, obviously, the All Blacks win. There's a few options for so there's some few options for the All Blacks. I do think that, so this is something I kind of just have a little gripe about. There's a lot of talk about Jordie Barrett being the best 12 for the All Blacks. Then why are you putting him on 15 on the weekend? Like, there's no consistency on the All Blacks selection at the moment. That's going to be really concerning for the team, because going to the World Cup, who's going to play 12? You need to give him, a considerable amount of games to solidify that spot. You can't just put him on the 12 position whenever you feel like. You need a 12, right? You need proper preparation going to the World Cup. So too many changes around for the All Blacks for my likings at the moment. What happened here? Yeah, so there's also obviously a little bit of obviously a lot of Scottish fans were not happy. They're talking about Craig Joubert back in town. So there was a try that was scored by Talea, which is clearly a try, by the way. There was no separation between the ball and his hands, but people did think that he lost control of the ball. It did look like the ball bounced off the ground, but nowadays all it matters is if the ball left the hand or not. If it never leaves the hand, it's still a try. So yeah, obviously, people tend to give the Springbok fans a lot of flack for crying about the referee. Looks like the Scottish fans still haven't forgotten the loss to Australia in 2007, 2011, 2011. Yeah, still haven't forgotten the loss to the Australians, to us in 2011, and claiming that Craig Joubert was back in town, the guy who made the wrong decision that cost them the match against Australia in the Rugby World Cup quarterfinals. So there you go. Craig Joubert. There you go. The upset. Like, if you search up Craig Joubert, the first pictures that come up is the Scottish team. Wrong decision against the Scotland, leading to Australia winning. Let's quickly go through the last bit. So the All Blacks beating Scotland, kind of get out of jail. I do want to talk about, there was an article. Yeah, here's the article. So this article is basically the post-match interview by Ian Foster. I mean, if you want to talk about gaslighting, this is like the definition of gaslighting, in my opinion. I didn't really like what he said here. he basically said that this game, despite losing to Scotland, like behind for like 65 minutes or so of the game, he said that this was an improvement against Scotland, who is really surprising to me. This is like the definition of gaslighting, and his reasoning for this is that the 12 months ago, so the last autumn internationals last year, where the last two games of the two tests, where the last two tests New Zealand lost to Ireland and France, he's basically saying that it's an improvement from those games, because in those two games, the New Zealand lost control of the match in the last quarter of the game, whereas in this game, the New Zealand took control of the match in the last quarter of the game and was able to win the test. So that's an improvement overall. This is like gaslighting at its most definition, because the two tests that the New Zealand lost, he didn't mention here, I just told you, is France and Ireland, the two best teams in the world. And to say that you lost the match in only the last 20 minutes against the two best teams in the world, and the fact that you didn't lose the last 20 minutes against Scotland, who's currently ranked, we just saw this, was currently ranked 9th, 8th in the world when they were playing. This is gaslighting. This is just really poor from Fozzie to say this, to say that this is a good sign of growth when your team is losing for most of the test match, and to say that this is a better performance because you finished off strong compared to against the number one, number two team in the world, is just really just gaslighting. And he also, some other areas I did. So with that being said, there's another point he did make. I kind of want to agree with him. I thought he did the right decision. So he did also talk about how he thought the game wasn't going right for the team, and he opted to substitute on the reserves earlier than he was planning to, which is something I thought was the right thing to do. He did talk about that, making a few changes early to try to stabilize the situation. And this was some good returns for the All Blacks team. I saw the one that I was mostly impressed by was TJ Perenara. He was spectacular off the game. He was miles better than I think it was Finlay Christie, who started the game. Miles and miles better. He was like the breakdown speed was like so much faster, so much more accurate, and the urgency was there, and he looked threatening when he got the ball. It was just a huge turnaround, and I would say he was the key factor that led to the All Blacks winning, closing out the game with a win that against Scotland. And next up we got Wales versus Argentina, 20 points to 13. This was a textbook Welsh performance. This was a very, I think my post-match review called this, I thought in my post-match review that this was a very Warren Gatland style of a Welsh to play. Just brutal defense. Wales made just stupid amounts of tackles and missed so few. 178 tackles, only 15 missed tackles. Despite having like penalty issues, they were giving away a lot of penalties. They were just happy to defend the try line again and again, stopping the Argentinians from going through. And just with good game management, with good control, Wales was able to win 20 points to 13, to many people's surprise, as Argentina has, the previous week beat the English. And this was quite a good performance. I thought quite solid performance by Wales. This is a very, Welsh style of rugby, and very good to see. And maybe this has something to do with Anscombe back at 10, because Anscombe was, the kind of like Warren Gatland's preferred number 10 before he was injured for bigger. Also in the Welsh team, out of this game, two big injuries. Rowlands was injured, and Lydiate was also injured. So Rowlands, I think Rowlands has a broken arm. Yeah. Shoulder injury. Rowlands has a shoulder injury. And Lydiate has an arm injury. So both these players are going to be out for the last couple of weeks for Wales. Argentina also had a bit of injury. So skipper Julian Montoya was injured going into the match before he was on the field. So Augustine Creevy was actually starting in the game. Was actually played this game. I think he started. And essentially he had a rib injury against England. They thought it was going to be okay, but after some assessment, during training he was left out of the team for the Welsh game. And then we've got some talks about Pivac talking about Alan Wynne-Jones' absence on the weekend. So Alan Wynne-Jones did not play, was not even on the bench on the weekend. So obviously there was a lot of cause for him to be retired after losing to New Zealand. But Pivac basically clarified this last week that he's not dropped from the team. They really value his input to, for the preparation during preparations, the way he's able to show that leadership, to hype to push the team during training. And he also mentioned the key factors that he wants to give new players an opportunity, and in terms of what they wanted to know from Alan Winjones' performance, he's already known everything, as you can see here. So there's really not much point for them to play him. That's his reasoning for not having him in the team. So England also went on to beat Japan quite convincingly, 52 points to 13. This was a huge performance by England. They really wanted to show their fans they can still, do good, still play good rugby. So this was a very, more open style of England rugby that was played on the week, scoring quite a number of tries, unlike the week before against Argentina, where England looked very conservative. This was a much open play. And out of this game, there was a lot of talk going into the game about the number 13 jersey. Malo Tuilangi was dropped from the number 13 jersey. Eddie Jones said that because they wanted to manage his game time, they don't want him to don't want to protect him, get injured. And then Eddie Jones also, opted to play Guy Porter. So obviously the Guy is a newer player for England. He's an English player, but he kind of grew up in Australia. And he was at the Brumbies at 2019, so we had an opportunity to potentially get him for the Wallabies. But let me tell you something, mate. This guy is spectacular. He reminded me of Dion Fourie from the Springboks time, from the old Springbok team. He's big, he's physical, he's fast, he can read the game really well. And just that physical dominance and presence that he has on the field was very impressive. He's got 2 tries against Japan. And he really reminded me of Dion Fourie from the Springboks. This guy, in case you don't know who Dion Fourie was, just big, fast, hard running, and just incredible physical dominance he showed on the weekend. So let's have an image of him, see if you can see. So that's him, Guy Porter. But so I was very impressed by him. So despite all the discussions, I think he showed the critics that he deserved the spot. So they did, like I mentioned, it was a pretty comfortable win for England overall. Not much else to say. England's got a big task coming up against the All Blacks this weekend. So the Eddie Jones is already, sharpening his media knives, saying that the All Blacks is there for the taking, which I do think is true. The All Blacks, they're probably going to change up, put Geordie Barrett at 12 and put Bowden at 15 this weekend, and then just put everybody out of position again and then see what happens. But we shall see how this is going to go. We shall see how the team's going to line up. I will do a preview for the 2 teams, including all the news, all the Eddie Jones back chat on Friday when the teams are announced. England also has some injury issues. Jack Noel has suffered an injury during the warm-up before Japan, so he is out. Whether or not he's going to be able to play against New Zealand, we have to wait and see. So next up, we've got, this is what's here? Oh yeah, so the Exeter Chiefs from the England has a lot of English fans been worried at the moment. They obviously 2 English clubs has went under in the last 6 months. So we had the Worcester Warriors and the London Wasps, both going under. And the Exeter Chiefs has announced they're going to be selling some non-rugby assets to repay their debt to the government loans. So this has got a lot of people worried. There's a lot of stats and stuff here. If you want to go read about it, you can. But the gist of it is that whilst on paper the club look okay, but they had a number of long-term debt that is going to be due really shortly. That's going to potentially cause a cash shortfall. So they're going to essentially free up some assets to cover that. But outside of that, everything kind of looks okay. So people are currently thinks that it's not going to be too much of an issue, especially if they manage to sell some assets and just cover the debt. So yeah, concerning times for English fans. Yeah, so that's just oh yeah, this is one you can. Oh yeah, so this is another one. So Newcastle Falcons in the England club is being investigated for a culture of racism. So a former England player, Luther Burrell, came out in like an interview. This was probably a few months ago, where he basically said that he was subject to racism. He's like a colored player, and he basically talks about when he was at the Falcons, people used to treat him, literally calling him a slave. In the club, so stuff like that, like calling him the N-word and all that sort of stuff. He basically came out and said that, and as a result, the Newcastle Falcons has been investigated with almost 100 people being interviewed as part of the investigation. And there's something could be, they could potentially be in trouble when the Newcastle, what do you call it? Walder, this guy named Walder, what's his name? Walder. But anyway, basically, the club has come out. This guy named Walder has come out and quickly said, "Hey, we don't have a racism issue. We've got people from Fiji, Samoa, US, and Argentina." It's just, it's like the most pathetic defense ever. It's like, hey, I'm not racist. I have a friend who's African. Okay, I'm not racist. He's, my neighbor is African. I speak to him now and then. I say hi to him when I go to work. I'm not racist. Right? Like, it's like the worst defense ever, right? So basically, we shall see how this goes. But yeah, this is the guy, Luther Burrell, who came out and said that, yeah, he was treated pretty badly. Next up, we got Ireland versus Fiji. So Ireland, despite beating Fiji 35 points to 17, Fiji had a red card, so Ireland was playing with a player advantage. Yeah, this was not too flashy performance. I do think the media was probably a bit too hard on Andy Farrell's men because, considering the spectacular performances the weeks before, they did feel like Ireland should have blown Fiji out further, especially against 14 men. Fiji is a really good team. They've been growing, they've been developing. They have a lot of their players playing Super Rugby as well, so they've been spending a lot of game times together. And I'm not surprised to see a much closer affair against like an Ireland, tier 2 sort of side. And yeah, I thought this was probably a bit overstated. Let's talk about this one first. So yeah, and even Andy Farrell came out and said the performance was awful and underwhelming. I do feel like this is probably overstated. I do think that Fijians are a lot better than people make it out to be. It's I would not be surprised if Fiji knocks out Australia or Wales in the Rugby World Cup next year, to be honest. Probably Australia, to be honest. Fiji is really, really, because they clearly have a goal they wanted to go through. Obviously, there was a red card resulting in Joey Carberry getting knocked pretty hard on the head, and as a result, the Irish team has 2 injuries from this game. So they have Joey Carberry and who was the other guy? Robbie Henshaw, both taken out due to injuries. So Henshaw has hamstring injuries and Carberry has a HI concussion that he probably won't be able to play against Australia this weekend. So this leaves Ireland with a bit of a dilemma. So Johnny Sexton is technically has like a little leg issue, but he should be able to play. But the Irish would not want to put him on because Johnny Sexton is really important for Irish team. There's no need for them to risk him against a tier 2 nation like Australia. But there's also another issue that since Joey Carberry is injured, they don't really have anybody else that is at the international level. The Jack Crowley, who is going to be making their debut essentially if Sexton is not able to play. So yeah, it leaves Ireland in a particular, in a weird situation. I think that what they probably do is probably start Crowley and then have Sexton on the bench just to cover for like in case. And or maybe Andy Farrell will call up somebody else like Billy Burns. I do think Billy Burns is a really, really good fly half. That was that he had one poor performance against in the Six Nations like a couple of years ago. That's been been like the end of his international career, it seems. I do think Billy Burns is really, really good, and I really hope that maybe Andy Farrell will call him up and give him another shot against Australia. We shall see. So that's been said. Next up, obviously the congratulations to Italy. The historic we made, Italy beating Australia for the first time in its history. Some really outstanding players came out of Italy as well. This guy, Capuzzo, he is the guy that scored 2 tries against Australia. He looked absolutely spectacular. He's the same player who scored the match-winning try against Italy. Against Wales for Italy in Cardiff. So he's absolutely one of the most exciting players. I think he's going to be the rookie of the year for rugby this year. He's absolutely amazing. Showed his talents against Australia. 2 tries. And yeah, so a lot of people were talking about why Australia lost. One of the, some stats came out, like the Wallabies is the most heavily penalized team in all the Tier 1 nations at the moment. 13.8 penalties across 12 tests. Really, really bad. And the James Slipper, the loose air prop, the captain at the moment, is the most penalized person in Australia in rugby championship. Was the most penalized person in rugby championship. 14 penalties, more than Marcos Crema, the Argentinians, who has a reputation of giving away a lot of penalties and even exceeded that. So really, really poor. And Australia's current winning percentage this year is 28.6%, which is lowest since 1958. Yeah. Obviously, we've talked about this already. Italy was able to beat Australia despite not having Pablo Gabisi, who's the superstar number 10, one of the most exciting number 10s in the Six Nations, actually, not just in Italy. He was extremely good. So Italy didn't have a goal kicker, and despite not able to kick half of the goals, it was still able to squeeze out a win with 1 point over Australia. I don't know. Go watch the replay. Maybe this pretty bad. So Sterling Morlock came out this week and basically told everyone we're not going to be able to win the Rugby World Cup, and we should just focus on 2027, where the World Cup is going to be in Australia. So the next one, not the one that's coming up next year, and just really focus on that. There was a lot of criticism from a lot of the other pundits as well. So obviously Morlock talked about the penalty stats, and also Morlock talks about the players being shuffled around, playing out of position. Like the combinations hasn't been consistent. I think Drew Mitchell talked about that the team really disrespected the Italians by making too many changes, and the coaches really did a poor job changing 12 players against Italy, where they almost feel like it's going to be an easy win. They disrespected that, and that's an oversight. So yeah, there was a lot of reasons that came out. The Wallabies coaches did come out this week saying they're going to be like dropping players who are consistently giving out penalties. You're the coach. It's your fault for not coaching the players to read the plays correctly, thus giving out the penalties. Not really the players. I'm sure nobody gets on the field and tries to give away penalties. So I think it's a coaching issue, but we shall see. The T2 nation of Australia, disgraceful. Finally, the Women's Rugby World Cup final happened. This was a very, very big match, and the unstoppable England side has been stopped after 30 games winning streak, losing to New Zealand at Eden Park. And this all kind of started with this picture here you're seeing. Head-to-head collision, red card. We see this a lot nowadays in rugby, and England had to play with... This was early in the first half as well, so England had to play with the player missing. And despite that, this was a close game for England as well. 34-31, only 3-point difference with the play in the bin. So yeah, really disappointing for the English girls. And congratulations to the Black Ferns. This is quite good. I found it actually interesting that the girls team, they call them Black Ferns, and the men's team, they call it Silver Ferns because the logo is technically silver. I guess, yeah, it's interesting how they swapped that around for the two teams. I thought, yeah, interesting. I thought maybe the men's one should be called the Black Ferns, and then the girls one should be called the Silver Ferns. Just because it's... Anyway, I don't make up the names. That's the news for this week. 40 minutes, a lot of news we're through. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on Friday for the previews and on the weekends for the reviews. And I appreciate you being here. See you later.